So I have here a new demo of the level editor as it's progressed. There is a lot more features. So one of the things that you can't see is that you can actually log in now. And I'll have to like iron that out more, but it basically works. I just like toggled it off. So you'll be able to log in and register your account. And what you can do is you can register a user account and you can use that to log in and make levels. And we'll have that as like a connective, interactive community so that the levels you create, you can share with people in a very social media type way. That's going to also auto backup your data. So as you're editing things, you'll have like editing states and whatever else. Now, when it comes to the editor, there's a bunch new features. You can see this. So the palette is at the top now. The options, you have an option to change your history state. If you want to memorize 30 undo states, you can do that by entering your options panel and then just toggling your history here. Other stuff that you can do is you can check out your history panel. So you can see if I start editing some stuff here, this now tracks my undo history and we can see what's going on. This can, again, memorize up to 15 to 30 states. So as these start to accumulate, you can see it just turns into a little scroll window. You can scroll down and see what you got going on here. The other thing that you can do is, so swatches, you can set swatches now. I think I've showed this in another video. So you can set your swatches. But you can also, when you're drawing, you can, let's see here. You can go into your drawing tool and you can right click the level. So you'll see here, my desk is so cluttered. Let me see if I can get my mouse. So if you look at your drawing tool here, as I'm right clicking, it's drawing with the background tile. So if I just forward click, I've got the foreground tile drawing. If I right click, I've got the background tile drawing. So that makes it very easy for you to go ahead and start kind of messing around with two different tiles without needing to switch back and forth all the time. You can always, of course, hit the letter X and it will switch your foreground and background tile for you, as you can see it changing up here. Other stuff we've got going on is with the select tool, you can now select multiple regions and you can just delete those like so. You can see the background tile fills that. The other stuff you can do is, as you're adding, so what I'm doing is I'm holding the shift key, and when you hold the shift key, you can shift add marquee selections. So you can even copy those if you wanted to. Let me just do that. So like you can see, I've got this, I've pasted that whole selection into an irregular selection now, which is really, really useful. If you hold down Option while the marquee is floated, it will duplicate it. So you can see it's just kind of like duplicating it and dragging it across the place. A better example would be, let me just open up a level for you. So here's that one level I had been messing around with. This is really just whatever. But if you select, say I have this pot here and I wanted to have another one, I can just select that. I can float it by clicking on it, so you can see it's now floating. And if I hold Option, it will just duplicate it for me, and I can just go boom, boom, boom. And now I've got some pots laying around the place. It's kind of like a messy little area here. Other cool stuff we have is there is, another thing too with the selection tool is you can subtract stuff from a selection. So suppose I have this whole thing here and I wanted to move this walkway, I can actually subtract this sign area by holding Option and selecting it. So now I can just move that whole area and the sign stays completely untouched. And of course, if you hit undo, it just lays your tiles back where they were. And so your floating selection is still there in place. You can do whatever you want with that. That's another way to duplicate it for now. Other stuff we got going on is, let's see here, pencil. So the Paintbrush tool, you can, there's a new Paintbrush tool where you can actually define paintbrushes. So like if you look at this bush here, I can actually turn this into a paintbrush. You gotta select it with your marquee tool, click paint, define or add paintbrush, and do bush brush, and you can set it as a fill or a stroke. So I'm just going to change this to a fill. And now if I go into my paintbrush tool, down here in my brushes panel on the side, I've now got in the fill section, I've got a bush brush that I can paint with. So let's see if I can get that to work. So what it is this is not where you select it. This is where you edit your brushes. This is just your brushes panel. You can actually export them and import them, and you can remove. So you can create brushes and you can share them with your friends and import them and all that stuff. So you can have like whole custom brush tools, which are really, really useful. I'll explain more in just 1 second. If you want to use the brush tool, so I just verified it exists because I added it. I go up to my paintbrush options and I'll select if you hover over it, you can see it says brush fill. And this second one says brush stroke if you look at the tooltip. So the first one, I'm going to select the bush brush. And now I've got a bush brush where I can just paint with bushes. Another cool thing that you can do is you can actually have a stroke to that. So if I went and I added stroke weight 1 to that, now I've got this stroke that I've created, and it's now surrounding the bush as I'm drawing. So some people might be wondering, like, you know, what is that? What is that like going around here? Well, let me just show you. So this is really useful. So I've already added this as a preset. So one of the things that I've added as a fill already is this walkway interior. So I went and I just kind of laid the tiles out. I selected them and I added them as a brush for the fill. So now I've got the walkway interior for the fill. And if you look at the bush brush, I'm going to change that to walkway interior here. And now I've got this walkway perimeter. This is a stroke. So you can create strokes as I've showed you earlier. So if I went here, I can select stroke and create a stroke. So this would just be like grass. Let's just do whatever. And so now in my brushes, in my stroke, I have that grass as a stroke. So what that means is it will draw it around your fill area. So I've created earlier a stroke called walkway perimeter, and this is what it looks like. So I created this region of tiles, I selected it, and I added it as a stroke called walkway perimeter, along with that walkway interior that I showed you. So this was the walkway interior. And so now if I go into my brush options, the paintbrush options for the paint roller here tool, you can see that I can choose walkway interior and perimeter, and I can just draw walkways now. So the stroke gets wrapped around the brush. Other cool stuff you can do is you can kind of rotate it. So like every so often the tiles will kind of rotate just to give it some more randomness. You can change that stroke effect, which will just kind of double it up and give it like this, you know, kaleidoscope, additional things going on. Some other tools I want to add in the future include like shape tools where you can draw circles and rectangles. That's probably one of the next things I'll add. But if you go into the fill here, the Floodfill has some cool new options too. So let me just, oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me just go into here and I'll select let me just select, I guess, I don't know, what's a good one? Maybe this cliff here. So if I select this cliff region here, and I create a pattern with it, I can call this cliff right, and I'll just hit confirm. So now I have a pattern called cliff right. If you go into the Floodfill tool, you can see your patterns in the Floodfill. Well, you can see the patterns, I think, probably with some other stuff in the future, but I'm not going to get into that. But with the Floodfill, they're active for that. So you can check it out that it did indeed add this cliff right. So if I go into my Floodfill here, I have a bunch of options with the Floodfill now. So one of the things that I want to do is I'm going to select this region here, and I'm just going to take my Floodfill, and I'm going to see how it's selecting the foreground tile. That's because I have use swatch selected. I'm going to uncheck use swatch, and if I Floodfill that, this is going to Floodfill it with any of the patterns I have selected. So house cladding is already kind of in the DSet or the default patterns. I'm going to click cliff right here. And if I flood fill with that, you can see it kind of just flood fills with that cliff. And it's aligned to where you click. So if I click over here, you can see that it's now aligned to where I click. And so if I click there, I can just then go in here and I'll hold my option key and I'll select that grass tile. I'll hit X, so now it's my background tile. And now I've got this region here, and I can just delete that, and you can see here I have some cliffs appearing. So it's a really easy way to start creating regions and adding regions. And if I wanted to make it longer here, I could even select this and just do like one of these and go with floating that, and then I'll just option click it and drag it up, and now I can just keep extending it too with the marquee tool. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the tools now. The flood fill has many more options also available with that pattern fill. So let me just go ahead and just, for example, I have this thing called house cladding. You can see if I flood fill with the house cladding, it just fills the level with that pattern. That pattern is in my patterns. I created it earlier. You can also import and export your patterns for flood fills and things like that. So if I go into my flood fill here and just kind of undo that, one of the things I can do with my pattern is I can adjust the X spacing, the Y spacing, the X offset, and the Y offset. So if I change the X offset, you can see that there's now spacing between. And if I increase the Y offset, there's now also spacing between there. So it's giving me kind of like this slight checkerboard look. If I wanted more of like a brick pattern, what I can do is I can change the offset. So I can change the X offset here. And now you can see it's starting to shift every other row. So you can create checkerboard patterns and a lot of things at ease now. If I can, or if I go ahead and reduce this X off and Y offset, you can now see that they're all conjoined, but they're not laid exactly back to back. So like it breaks up a lot of that repeating pattern. The other stuff you can do is you can increase your scatter. So as I flood fill, it gives me like that random effect. I can increase that all the way up. And that'll give me also more of a random effect. So by going ahead and playing with a lot of these options, you can get a lot of different randomized looks, or you can get more organized looks. It really depends on what you decide to do with it. So yeah, anyway, that's a lot of what we have going on. There's a lot more stuff you can do. So I'm not going to get into everything, but the level editor is really coming along here. And like I said, it works with Graal files. Presently, I will be replacing the tile set and creating a new game with this level editor. If you're interested in it, go ahead and check the description below and join our server where you can get lots of drama of us freaking out, or us talking about politics, or us just talking about game design and art, because we are just a bunch of artists gathered together who like to talk about Graal, who like to talk about the world, and who like to make art. You can get access to this tool. I can even create you an account. I will be creating, moving forward, a database of accounts for people who want to be a part of this new game, this new journey we're creating with JEST. And as you create levels, again, it will be auto backed up onto the server. You can share it with your friends. You can also download it. You can send it to friends, again, over the web, or you can have, there will be a login feature where you can chat with people, and it will be stored in here. You'll have like your own mail system where you can communicate with your own creators and team here. And you can also have, I'll be showing like a list. There'll be like a grid view where you can view different levels that people have created. You can vote on them. You can upvote them. You can leave comments on them and things like that. So that more social aspect is already under development. I have the login system kind of going. But more importantly, you will also be able to gain benefits the more you create and the more you contribute. So you'll be able to start getting different points to go to your account, and as those points go on your account and the game and the development community and the tools continue to evolve and merge higher and higher with higher user bases and also higher content, those points will be able to translate into a type of currency that you can use. So I'm not sure exactly what all that'll be, but it will be available. So it's important for you to join the server now and maybe get ahead, even though this is very early in the development of JEST. So anyways, one of the other things I wanted to show you is that with the palette tool, just to be reiterate, you can double click tiles in the palette and that will set it as your foreground. So if I wanted to double click that, I can do that. I can also, another cool thing is I can open up my swatches here and I can drag a tile, but you have to click it. It's you don't have to hold a drag in my level editor. I'm not down with that. I think that's tedious and it's painful on your hand to have to constantly drag and drop things. So what you do is you click. You can select a region here in this tile set, and let's get this tile. So if I take this tile here and I drop it in my swatches, it will ask me if I want to add that. So I'll just do like roof. I don't know. I don't even know what that is. What is it, like a nail? Something, some roof beam head. And now that adds to my swatch. So you can see you got the roof beam head. You can export and import your swatches. So that's very easy. You can definitely just click a tile now and drag it and drop it into your swatches. And that will give you the ability to quickly just select that tile and boom, you're drawing. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I am going to hop off of here. This has been a lot of work. The level editor is really at a point where I am going to compile an application version of it. So it's done in Electron. It could run on Windows. It could run on Mac. And you will be able to download it. And it will still, again, be hooked into the server and to the account system. So you'll be able to log in and do all that stuff if you want to. I'm going to make sure that the level editing process isn't just you sitting there making levels by yourself. It will be very much a social experience, and the stuff you create will translate to real in-game currency, community currency points, and things like that. And you will be able to connect with your other people in the community and view and share your files within the JEST game development tools. So anyways, go ahead and check the description below for the link to the Discord server. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.